you were sitting in the front row of that rally, and the story of you walking up there, you were going to go up on stage, and then he said, wait, I want to look at this chart. Tell us what happened that day, right before the shooting.
I mean, we were so excited to have the president in Butler County, and there was 15,000 people there, and the president told me beforehand, I want to have you come up on stage. And he got up on the stage, and within a couple minutes started to talk about my race and invited me to come up. And so I started to walk through security and get on the podium. And then he said, no, I want to show this chart about the border. Go back to your seat, and I'll have you come up a little bit later.
Wow.
And I got back to my seat, and within a minute or two, the shooting started.
Yeah, and I was told by someone who was there as well, he said to me that the president went out of order with the charts.
Yeah.
He was supposed to bring up those charts later on in the speech, but he was, ad-libbing and talking to everybody, and he said, well, I have one chart to show you. And then he signaled to the person putting the charts up on the screen, get that chart. And then she was moving things around to put the chart up. And then she finally said to him, I have the chart. And that's when he said, all right, look at this chart.
Yeah.
And that's when he moved his head.
Amazing. And you see now, I mean, an inch difference, and it would have been a catastrophic loss for the country.
And that's what you write in your op-ed in the Wall Street Journal. You write 1 inch. That's how close America came to losing Donald Trump to an assassin's bullet Saturday evening. And that inch may be a metaphor for how close we are to an internal breakdown in the greatest country the world has ever known. Well, tell us more.
Well, I just think this is the result of increasingly polarization in our politics, increasingly negative rhetoric that is dehumanizing, and we have a moment here where we can step back from the brink. I think we were so lucky the president wasn't killed. We, of course, had the horrible loss of Mr. Trump, which is so horrible. But we now have a moment to step back and say, listen, we have huge differences in ideas. I believe that we're headed in a desperately wrong direction, and we need to get the country back on track. And I think President Biden and Bob Casey are part of the problem. But as we debate those ideas and we have that conflict, we need to do it in a way that resolves this in elections with civil discourse.
So tell me about your race. What do you want to say about your opponent?
Well, my opponent has been a guy that's been there 18 years and hasn't made a meaningful difference, hasn't been a leader in any way, has voted 98% of the time with Joe Biden. So he's been a rubber stamp for
Bob Casey.
And we're at a time where we need leadership and change. And Bob Casey's been the opposite of that. He's been a follower in the status quo.
I want to ask you about Trump's chances in Pennsylvania. A new poll finds key battleground states could see record voter turnout. In November, 85% of Pennsylvania respondents said that they would be voting. Dave, what do you think about that? Do you think President Trump can take Pennsylvania?
I do. I absolutely do. First of all, I think it's going to be great turnout. Voter registration for Republicans is going up. But I think Republicans are unified and motivated to take our country in the right direction. But this isn't just about Republicans or Democrats. The problems of sky-high inflation or wide-open border or the fentanyl crisis, they're not Republican problems. They're Democratic problems. They're independent problems. And you saw the strength of President Trump on the day he was shot. And I think ultimately this is coming down to a race about strength versus weakness. And we've seen a lot of weakness in the last three and a half years under President Biden and Senator Casey.
Well, we're also seeing weakness just when you look at President Biden in terms of these cognitive issues. Look, I want to thank you for your service to our country. You are a Gulf War veteran, and you have fought for our country, and obviously you know about gunfire. But there's some worries about J.D. Vance and his stance on international affairs. President Trump said that Taiwan should pay for the U.S. for protection from China, saying that the country, quote, doesn't give us anything and took about 100% of America's chip business. That sent partly that and also the idea that we're going to get, tougher stances on chip companies. It sent these chip stocks sharply lower yesterday. As you can see, look at this, ASLM down 13%. You had Advanced Micro, AMD down 10.25%, NVIDIA down 7%. Taiwan is the world's largest semiconductor producer. So if you're elected in the Senate, how do you improve our military, the defense budgets, and what about that, the U.S. versus the rest of the world?
Well, I think under President Trump, I think we were going to have a philosophy and leadership that brings peace through strength. And if you look at what happened on that day of the shooting, the one thing the world saw was a leader of strength. I mean, 100 people are shot like that, or in that situation. 99 of them stay on the ground in the fetal position. President Trump stood up in defiance and reassurance. So I think we've got strength first and foremost, and that's the most important thing in national security. I think the idea that our allies, our closest friends, need to pay their fair share for America's support is absolutely critical. Even today in NATO, we still don't have Germany and France paying their fair share. And I think absolutely we should do everything we can to make sure Taiwan is adequately armed. But Taiwan needs to do its part in paying for all that support. And I think that essence of President Trump's argument and Senator Vance's argument makes all the sense in the world.
Do you expect things to change with regard to sending money to Ukraine, as well as, look, we've got two wars underway right now as a result of J.D. Vance being on the ticket and perhaps the vice president?
You know, I wouldn't want to speculate. I honestly don't know. I'm very excited about having Senator Vance on the ticket for Pennsylvania. I think he's going to bring veterans. I think he's going to bring people that understand that working families are getting screwed under President Biden's leadership. That's going to be the real focus, and I think it's going to be great to have him on the ticket.
What an incredible story that Senator J.D. Vance has. Dave, it's great to have you this morning. Thanks very much.
My pleasure. DaveMcCormickPA.com.
All right. We will go there, and we'll be watching your race. Thanks very much, Dave McCormick. Quick break.